What's up out there? Welcome back to the Halloween Horror Movie Marathon. I know it is only September 19th, but this actually started on September 15th, and I am taking advantage of, normally this would run through October, just October 1st to the 31st, but I'm taking advantage of a few extra days so that I can get more movies in and spend a little less time grinding this out. Normally it's a huge grind to get through it, 31 movies in 31 days, so here we are. So the first movie we're going to talk about is Mortuary. Now this is a Tobe Hooper film. It came out in 2005, and I think we watched this on Amazon Prime. It came out just before the marathon came in. I saw this added to Amazon Prime, and I said, "Cool," and I checked it out. It's directed by Tobe Hooper himself, and the list that I follow on Letterboxd is named after him, Hooptober. This actually stars Denise Crosby from Star Trek Next Generation, if you grew up watching that. And it's got Michael Shamus. You'd recognize the face. Like, I know him. He was one of the bartenders in Fight Club. I've seen him in a lot of different TV shows. Like, you look at his IMDb list and he's just in everything. For some reason, he was not logged in Letterboxd with this movie. I don't understand that. But anyway, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. Now, this is not a great movie. It's about the main character, Denise Crosby's plays, moves into, with her son and daughter, moves into a mortuary. She's going to do mortuary services there, and I didn't catch that. I thought she was moving across the country, going into this place because it was kind of a shithole, and I thought she was living there just because that was like the cheap place. Well, then I found out, no, she was going to be doing, dealing with dead bodies and stuff. And of course, the place is haunted or something. There's some stuff going on. When it kind of starts off, it's a little bit more like, say, a Stephen King movie. And it's got a Stephen King vibe at first. And the house is just really nasty and disgusting. And, they have to go into this place, rusty water. Everything's just all corroded and disgusting. And as the movie goes on, you learn things about the house and all that. And it's kind of your typical haunted house. Some things change and some things get explained and some things don't. It's not really one you want to like invest a whole bunch into because it's a cool movie, but it's entertaining, and that's what matters most, I think, especially in these marathons, because the first few movies are going to be whatever. You'll hit a couple of high points and then there'll be some really low points. But throughout these marathons that I've done over the last several years, you want something to be entertaining. If it's not entertaining and you fall asleep in it, or it's just ungodly boring and you have to break it up into multiple parts, it just makes for a hard month or a hard movie to sit through. And nobody wants that. I've had my fair share of those. In fact, a couple of Hooper's movies himself have been pretty rough to get through. So this one actually brings it up to probably 3 movies that I would rotate in and out. We always have to have a Hooper movie for the marathon that I take part in. And this one, of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then the Funhouse would be the 3 that I rotate. Like I said, this was pretty fun. I'd watch this again. It's not great. Like, it's definitely not as good as Funhouse, and nowhere near, Texas Chainsaw status, but Texas Chainsaw is like masterpiece. You know what I mean? It's like a masterpiece of horror. But this was a fun movie. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and I don't know, I'd recommend it. I think it was pretty cool. So that was Mortuary from 2005. So the next movie I watched is a movie called Effects, and this is from 1979. This has been directed by Dusty Nelson, and I didn't recognize most of the cast. I think there was one name that I should have known, based on the descriptions, but the only person that I noticed or knew of was Tom Savini. He had kind of a bit part in it, a little douchebag part that he played. He was an all right character up until a point, and then he kind of turned into a douchebag, but pretty much he's known, if you don't know who that is, he is known for a lot of special effects. He played Sex Machine in From Dusk Till Dawn. You'll know him if you've seen him. He's been in a ton of movies. He's done a lot of special effects and things like that over the years. So this is a regional horror movie. That's what category it fit. It's made in the US, and I'm not sure what state it was. I didn't pay attention to that, but I gave this one 3 out of 5. This is a movie about a movie. These people are making a horror movie, and they're filming it, and you see various scenes that they're creating. The cameras are recording them record stuff. It's, you know, that meta thing or whatever you want to call it. It was very cool. And it's a really slow movie, but it's kind of interesting. It's got a lot of cool things that go on. And for somebody that's like a film buff watching people make a horror movie, and you're kind of wondering where things are going to go. Things do take a turn and things get kind of exciting, if you want to call it that. They did some action and things towards the end, but I didn't like the ending. I did not like how it stopped. You kind of get to the end, it stops, and then it shows something and you're done. And that was that. I feel like this one had a great buildup, and this is where I was thinking, I wondered why it wasn't a more known film, because it's got a great buildup to it. Fantastic buildup. Like, you're seeing all the different crew members and how they interact together, and some fights that are breaking out, and people that get along, people that don't. And it was a really cool way of doing the whole thing. But then they get 3/4 of the way through it and they change and try to do something a little different. And I get what they were going for, but it didn't work. And I think that's why this one really didn't do very much. It could have done a lot better if they'd had a lot better ending to it. But it was a good movie. Would I recommend this? If you're a horror fan and you need something for a list, yeah, sure, you know. But if you're just looking for a movie to kill time with, I think this is more for people that enjoy looking into the way things were, whether it's the way it was filmed or the cast that was in it, or it's just a period of time in horror, or like I need it for this movie list here for this marathon. I don't know that I would recommend this as, like, you know, you don't want to go watch this instead of Friday the 13th. You know what I mean? I wouldn't do that. So that's why this one got 3 out of 5 stars. It was really cool. It was kind of almost if this was made today, it would almost have fit the 70s. You know what I mean? Like, it's got that retro vibe to it, even though it's from the 70s. The way people are making movies today to look from that era, this actually did a good job of doing that. And I know it sounds stupid because it's from that era anyway, but I think this one could be remade today to look back then and have a better ending and be done. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So anyway, that was Effects from 1979. Okay, the last movie that I've had a chance to watch is a silent film, which nobody watching this is going to ever say, oh my God, I can't wait to go watch a silent film, right? Now, this was actually pretty cool. This is Hands of Orlac from 1924. So this is almost 100 years old. It was directed by Robert Ween, however you say his name. The cast of note is Conrad Veidt, and he was the guy, if you've ever seen, which I'm talking about silent films from the 20s, but there's a movie called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It's like one of the really foundational horror movies from way back in the day. He was in that. He's been in this Hands of Orlac movie, and he was also in Casablanca, oddly enough, with oh God, what's his name? I can't. Bogart, Humphrey Bogart. So he was in that also, and some other movies. Like, he was in a few movies I'd watched, but those are the ones that were the biggest ones. The rest of the cast I didn't really know. This fits the category of German silent film. Kind of obviously, it is an Austrian or German film. And I gave this one a 3 out of 5 also. Every movie I've watched so far has been 3 out of 5. My rating system is basically 1 is complete dog shit. So anything 0 to 1 is garbage. 1 to 2, somewhere in there, it's probably a bad movie, like a really bad movie, but, you know, maybe Sharknado bad or something like that. Yes, there are worse movies than Sharknado, believe me. And then the 2 to 3 range, you know, 2.5, 3 stars, somewhere in there. 3 stars is basically my midline between 1 and 5. And then if it's a 3.5 star movie, it's better than average. Average is kind of a 3-star movie. And then a 4-star is really exceptional. And a 5-star is like one of my all-time favorites. Oh my God, this is a killer movie. So these have all been pretty average. That's where my 3 out of 5 stars rates. So this one was no exception. And this one, silent movies are hard because you don't get the audio from it. I know it's silent film, I get that, but like, I got birds that scream all day long, so I just threw headphones on, listened to some death metal all day while this thing was playing, and watched it. I actually got kind of sleepy, not because of the movie, but I got kind of sleepy and had to break it up into a couple parts. But this wasn't a bad movie. I really enjoyed this, and I think this could be remade fairly well. So the premise is you've got a guy that's a pianist. He plays piano, not his pianist. So dude plays piano, gets in a big train wreck. And the train wreck scene was actually pretty cool. They didn't show the thing wrecking or anything, but they showed a lot of aftermath and, hauling bodies off. And in fact, one guy laid down and adjusted his hat while he was laying on the stretcher and they were hauling him off. But I mean, there was some interesting ways of showing this. They showed a big train all rolled all over the place. Like there was some actual effort put into the set pieces and everything they did. And then at some point, he basically loses his hands because of the accident. And then at some point, he's back at his home and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get this back together. Well, the doctor, professor, whoever it is that's going to graft his hands back on, and his wife pleads with this guy, hey, get his hands back. He's a piano player. He needs to play, and he's this really well-known piano player or whatever. So the doctor gets a dead body in, which just happens to be a murderer that got executed. So he takes that guy's hands and sticks them on our, Orlac's hands instead. So Orlac starts seeing things like this dude walking around in the back, and it's supposedly this ghost or whatever of the murderer. So that's kind of what you get throughout the whole thing is he's getting messed with and things are happening. And his wife goes to his father who hates him, hates Orlac. And so she's trying to get him to help get the hands fixed because now he's got these possessed hands and things aren't going so well. He's having all kind of issues with it. And eventually the Orlac goes to visit his father and finds his father stabbed to death with the dagger that the murderer used, and before he got executed. And next thing you know, the murderer shows up and he's talking to Orlac saying, look, you got to give me all this money. And the cops know you did it because you have Orlac's hand, or you have the murderer's hands, and you had the guy's dagger and his fingerprints and everywhere. So it's kind of a really cool setup on this whole ghost thing. And I'm going to spoil this one because I doubt anybody's going to go watch this. It's 1924 silent film. It was a cool movie, but I doubt anybody's going to go run out and watch this. So it turns out that the murderer's buddy put tape around his neck and acted like he had the head grafted onto the body of the murderer. And he was acting like, he had lost his hands and everything. And he put himself as the murderer reincarnated, and he was blackmailing Orlac. And when in fact he had actually killed Orlac's father. So it was kind of an interesting twist on the whole thing. What I really liked about this, the story, there was a good twist. You know what I mean? Like you spend all this time watching it and then there's an actual twist to it. It wasn't just a straight up ending, which for 1924, I think was pretty cool. The set pieces were really cool. Like it was kind of odd. Like this room is fairly small. You can see a wall there. In the back, but you can see the door that wall's on. You can see this wall here where my bookcase is. This is a very small room. The rooms that they had in there were just massive, like way bigger than any room I have in my house. Like a living room sized room, but bigger. And they were pulled way back. So you had these people sitting in these massive rooms with kind of cool, the rooms kind of became their own character in the story, not because of what was going on behind it, but just because of how big they were. And like they had nice ornate walls and stuff on the back. There was just some cool things about it. The way it was set up, I love the cast. I love the way everybody, because it's a silent film, you have to use facial expressions to describe things, and you have to show things. Every once in a while you'd see somebody mouthing something and then they'd splash some text up to get a point across, but for the most part, everything had to be shown. So when you're watching Orlac pull out a record, he's got these murderer's hands, and he pulls out a record and sticks it on and plays it, and it's a recording of him playing, and he tries to air guitar, air piano, whatever you want to call it. the fingerings of the piano piece, and then he can't, and he gets pissed off and slams the record down. Like, you could see the he's kind of excited about it, and then as he realizes he can't play anymore, he gets furious and throws the record down and smashes it. Like, there's just something about showing the story without explaining everything all over the place, like we get in so many modern video games with the heads up display that has just everything under the sun shown off in markers, or modern movies that just spend an hour telling you the entire story without showing you something that could be shown in 5 minutes. They spend an hour talking about, you know what I mean, like things like that. And you go back to this movie, and this is the silent film era, of course, but they spent a lot of time showing you things, and I loved it. The one person I couldn't stand was his wife. Whoever played her, they had her in really serious eyeliner, and just she made these super exaggerated faces. Like all the other people, you could see them make an exclamation point, like, oh. You could see the eyebrows raised. Like I keep thinking of The Rock, where he's got that one picture where he raises an eyebrow. You know what I mean? Like that little, just a little exaggerated movement worked. And hers was so over the top exaggerated. She was, arms out and face up and everything. It was just too much, way too much. And everybody else was far more subdued, and she was just kind of annoying instead of, I found her character to just be absolutely annoying. But overall, though, I did really enjoy a lot of the performances. I mean, they were performing whatever they were doing, and they were talking and arguing and fighting and whatever they were doing. But it was convincing. Like, you get the whole story by just watching it. Very little text, very little explanation, and I don't know. It was really cool. I really dug the way this worked. So for a silent film, and you get into a marathon like this, and they want you to have an old silent film or something from all these different decades, you kind of have to fill in. So this one fits 1920s, and it's my German silent entry. So I enjoyed this. Like I said, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. It's not superb. I mean, it's a really cool old movie. It's definitely nothing I would recommend, and it's nothing that I would see anybody watching unless you're in a marathon like this. Or you have a treasure hunt to go do something like this. That's really it. So anyway, that will do it for this first video in the series. We'll have another weekly update here soon with some more movies in it, and that will do it. Take care.